Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. This is the Williams Bain podcast, and today we're joined by Michelle Forrest. I've known Michelle for many years, and we've worked together before with one of our clients. Michelle is a very experienced interim PMO transformation lead, and we're going to talk today. I think the real sort of question we're going to sort of talk around is why a good PMO office is essential for a successful transformation. But why don't I hand over to Michelle and she can introduce herself a little bit. Over to you.
Thanks, Mark. So I work in PMO transformation. Many of the clients that I've had have been financial services, and that might be energy, it could be consultancy, media, marketing even, transportation. There's a raft of industries I've worked with over the years. I've been in this space for around 20 years and thoroughly love what I do, working with lots of different clients, and I continue to do so with a lot of passion.
Yeah, well, I certainly have felt that. I think, how long ago did we work together?
I'm thinking it's about 7 years, Mark.
Yeah, probably. It's definitely pre-COVID.
Yes, Yorkshire Water.
Yeah, Yorkshire Water Kelder Group. We're allowed to say the company, like they've said it's okay many years ago now. And we basically supported them with a team of people, and you were very much an integral part of that. And successful assignment, of course. And but since then, you've done multiple industries across support services, across some financial services. Infrastructure, lots of different organizations. Do you think that's helpful? If you work across multiple industries, you've got that experience?
Absolutely, because the principles are the principles, and then it's applying those principles and being able to adapt and work with different organizations, with their culture, their ways of working, which has changed a lot in recent years. I would say definitely the last 5 years. Since COVID, we've seen quite a lot of differences. There's been certain trends that happened pre-COVID, maybe 2016, maybe 9 years ago. There was a lot of work in financial services around risk remediation, and that's continued. There are other things that crop up as well. I've seen a lot of finance transformations, risk, a lot of infrastructure working with rail industries as well, around franchises. So that's been another part of my work. And then more recently, there was trends around in the retail industry to change, going from not necessarily having a great online presence, so digital transformations, to actually having a better online presence. And I think that the driver for that was COVID. So there's been quite a lot of things. And then things that fall out of that. And now it's more around, I would say, efficiencies. So there's been quite a lot of work around efficiencies now that, particularly with PE-backed companies, they're now looking to make efficiencies. They've had a 3-year plan, and now they're putting in some other changes. So absolutely, because all of these experiences help. There's a blend that happens in the middle, and I think having that breadth really helps to be able to apply it. And it's more experience, different skills, working with different companies.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I'm speaking to clients, sometimes when we speak to clients, they say, they need to know our industry. Like, okay, yeah, I understand that. I understand there's some nervousness about this is new, and you want someone who's experienced, and yes, I agree. We'll always find someone from their industry. But we'll always ask if we can also include people that are not from their industry. Maybe they're an add-on. Maybe we send 3 CVs from their industry and 1 person from not their industry, but someone that I've worked with before. They're genuinely industry agnostic. They're being best practice and all those types of things. And so many times the client will go with the person who's not from the industry because they see the value of the breadth of the experience. And it's really, it's nice as a recruiter. That's nice to see clients doing that. And bring in best practice from other industries into their industry. So, I definitely value that as a skill set. Tell me how it applies to transformation, though, because a lot of your work is transformational change, or you're there organizing, supporting, managing, making sure it happens. So tell me about PMO within transformation and how and what you bring from the PMO office.
Big transformation programs are usually, they're complex. They could be cross in different countries. They are usually have elements of IT, people, HR elements. They often include a number of third parties. They often include some consultancies who are maybe coming in as SMEs within the space. To provide guidance, particularly if we're talking risk, tax, and there are other things as well, and efficiencies. So regardless of the industry, whether it's public sector, private sector, large organisation, PE backed, there are certain principles, and ensuring the principles within a PMO transformation office, the fundamentals are key to make sure that it is set up correctly and that it has the rigour, command and control that's needed in order to make sure that people know what they're doing and when they're doing it. And that could be from a delivery side, that could be from the governance and assurance side as well. And of course, when that change goes live and it flips over into what was operations or BAU. So pulling all of these things together. So what I look for is I often ask myself a few questions around the principles, which is what are the fundamentals? What do they need? What are the foundations? Are they in place? What kind of data do they have? What's the quality of the data? What's the engagement like within the organisation and collaboration? And do they understand the stakeholders? So there's a few key things that I look for when going into any PMO transformation. And sometimes it's going in to help an existing. If it's going in to set one up, then it's still looking at the organisation thinking, what do they actually need? Where do they need to go to? How quickly do they need to get there? What gaps do they have and what do they need right now? Where are the quick wins? Where can we add value? Where can I add value to start to help them on their journey? A lot of things, what I find is that there's a lot of ambiguity because transformation is itself, because it's so broad. When I say we, I mean the organisation and their extended team, including their interims. We might not know what that looks like right now, but that's okay. So having ambiguity is okay. It's how we work together to understand that, so we can put the right things in place and come back to it. And that's one of the key things about it being successful, is around that. And ultimately that comes to leadership, being really clear and having that trust and transparency.
I love the fact that, there's an element of structure, governance, an element of command and control, because these things are big and multifaceted and you need that. But then at the same time, you're just as passionately speaking about things that change and ambiguity, because that's the realistic side of running a program. And it's nice to see those two things. I think that probably shows experience, because when we speak to people that perhaps have a lot less experience, they don't mention those two things together. They tend to mention one or the other. And then we sort of then decide which type of assignment to put them into. But, the work that you've done for us before, you genuinely sit in the middle and pull everything together. And is that what a good PMO office should be doing? Just sitting in the middle?
There is an element of being impartial. And I think any PMO will be impartial, particularly when we're dealing with transformation PMO, which is the example. So being impartial, being able to see and understand the different opinions, the different views, the different lenses. And because it's not just one lens, there's multiple, depending on, you've got external people, the third-party suppliers, for example, they'll have a lens, the board will have a lens. delivery teams will have a lens. The people who are going to be recipient of the change, they will have a lens. Now, understanding the stakeholders, what's driving them and how we can help them and what they need and what kind of comms they need is really important. And then I think the other side of it is we're not just sat in the middle. We're a bit like swans on a lake. We look as if we're just floating, but underneath there's a lot of things going on. So we are making sure that our stakeholders are well informed, they understand, they're on the same path. We're also providing advice and guidance to our SLT and our boards, working with our business change managers who have a difficult job to do, understanding what their needs are, and their needs and the needs of the board are usually very different. We're having to work quite hard around working with them on communications to articulate outcomes and benefits specifically to people who are going to be impacted by change. So we're not just sat there. We might provide, I'm not saying that we do it because that's the business change manager, but having said that, in some organisations it might actually be us or somebody from one of our teams who facilitates that or works a little bit more closely with them. So there's not one size fits all. So there's a whole raft of things going on depending on what the need is. So we are very much adaptable. We take a view of having a helicopter view and looking down. But what we respond to things and we look at what insights can we get and how can we make this into something which is valuable so that it enables teams to achieve the outcomes ultimately and the benefits, because all of these things are going to link to strategic objectives, and that is why we're there.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you. I think that's a really good explanation. And if we've got, let's say, and I've come across this several times, I'm pausing a little bit as I try and phrase it properly, but let's say, for instance, that we've got clients or potential clients, or there's companies out there, leaders out there, and they're trying to deliver an element of transformation. But what they've decided is that they don't want or they don't need a PMO. And we've heard this many, many times, even for large-scale transformational changes. They don't want a PMO, they just want the transformation program director. Now, if they don't have a PMO, what will they be experiencing without a PMO that they wouldn't be experiencing with a PMO?
I think if they didn't have a PMO, their teams would be working quite hard on producing reports. That would be the first thing, because they would be responsible for producing their status reports, their templates, their methodologies, doing their risks and issues. They wouldn't have anybody to say, could you just clarify this? Could we do a review on that? Let's do an assurance piece. They wouldn't have the guidance. They wouldn't have the prompts. They would feel quite heavily admin based. They would probably struggle with some of the skill sets or some of the breadth of knowledge because they are delivery people. So I think the work would get pushed down. And that would the program director would usually delegate that to a program manager. Chances are they produce the reports anyway and send them into PMO, and then we would pick that up and do what we need to do and mesh that together to make sure that it's perfect and it's ready to go. They wouldn't have that. So they're going to feel quite busy, and they're going to feel that it's quite, in their words, heavily admin based.
Yeah, okay.
The real problem is that there is no assurance. So the things that the got-yous, the surprises that boards don't want, we don't want any surprises.
Yeah.
Chances are those would float through. So I think with the PMO being able to bring everybody together and actually put a good wrapper around things to make sure that it's working, and it's working in the right way, at the right time, with the right people, they would probably feel a little bit of pressure because they don't have that. And I think when I've been in organisations who don't have that, it's a bit of a free-for-all. It feels unstructured, it feels very ad hoc, there's lots of duplication, there's lots of one versions of the truth, which clearly can't work. The data quality is usually really poor. The communication, there isn't a communication plan. There are often no real plans to pull everything together. And the value is that this lovely swan who's quite serene, there's a little team of people actually working really hard to make sure that all of these things work.
That's really interesting. Thank you, because so many times I'll speak to someone who's delivering a transformational change, and this is the board sponsor. You know, most of the people that mandate us are either someone who either controls the balance sheet or heavily influences the person who does control the balance sheet, depending on the size of the organization. So, and sometimes, you know, the response that come back for a program that's in flight is, I'm getting surprises. My gut feel is it's not going in the right path that I want it to. I think we're missing things. I think we could have captured more than what we should have captured. And it just is this feeling of nobody's got hold of this. And that's a horrible feeling for a key stakeholder. So, and that's what the PMO brings. It brings that assurance, that quality, and no surprises, which is, I think, I don't know any exec who doesn't say, I don't want any surprises.
The no surprises is ultimately the thing that makes a big difference, because if we can see it, then we can do something about it. We don't know what we don't know. There's a big difference between ambiguity and we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And that comes with the experience, and that comes with, we've got the ability to look across the horizon to see what's coming down, not just within the transformation program, but across the business. And working with the stakeholders at various levels, and whether it be in BAU, whether it's within the board, whether it's within the third parties or the delivery teams, project managers. There's snippets of information that I come across, and what I do is I link these people up. So dependencies within planning, I love program planning. And some of my roles have been purely program planning in previous years. And the amount of, we didn't know that, well, that's okay. We know that now, so we can have a conversation. So this is the kind of things which you think, if we didn't know that, then we could drop something, which means your plan's going to go out, which means it's going to cost more, which means some of these organisations, they're going to get a penalty because that's what happens in some of these projects. There is often a financial penalty, and then there's a risk. And then we've got to, and the impact of that is really high. I don't want any surprises. And that is where having the right people at the right time, with the right skill set, with breadth of knowledge, is really important. And often that could be an interim. Somebody like myself coming in to either set that up or bridge that gap. Invaluable.
You're right. I mean, it's often an interim. Sometimes it's an independent consultant, very similar things. Sometimes it's a member of the large consultancies, and you know, because you've worn a large consultancy badge for a few years and been deployed into clients. But ultimately, not a lot of companies carry a PMO or carry that PMO skill set on their payroll week in, week out. I mean, if they did, I'd be slightly worried that they're racking up costs for a BAU type situation. So tell me a bit about toolkits, because am I right in thinking that when you're deployed into a client, you're bringing a suite of toolkits and ways of working with you? Is that right? Is that fair to say?
Yes, and I think that they're not necessarily tangible things. A lot of it is me in,
Yeah.
with my breadth of
Experience.
experience and knowledge,
Yeah.
and sometimes, and I'm proud to say it's linking some of my network with my clients as well through, people like yourself, Mark, recommendations of people where they think I need a specific type of project manager. Like, I
Yeah.
actually know someone, and making those links. So we are good resources to have. We can do things very quickly. Yes, I've got lots of templates and things that I've used over the year that I've created. That is a good starting point. Often what I find is that companies have theirs, and then what we do is
Yeah.
we tweak it with, and I can make suggestions through my my toolkits here, which is fantastic. And then we might end up with hybrids. So I think this collaboration between people like myself and companies to fill those gaps and make sure that they get good value for money, and then secondly they get a solution, and they get the things they need at the right time, at the right quality, they can use, and that's repeatable. So they can
Yeah.
take, for example, a template around benefits management, or a process, or a delivery framework. I worked with a company recently developing a bespoke MSP based program methodology, which
Yeah.
was superb because it fitted really well with Prince 2. That's what they were using for their projects, and MSP complemented it. We changed some wording, we made it fit. They have that, and it's repeatable, it's theirs, it's
Yeah.
on best practice. And it's everything that they need. And because their people were part of that, they want to use it. So it's not somebody coming in going, there you go, off you go, we're going to leave you to it. It's
Yeah.
more, let's work on this together, and we will, the bits that we don't know, the ambiguity, we can work on that together. These are some of the principles. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what it means for your organization. And that is where I think a lot of the value is. It's having that
Yeah.
experience and that knowledge, and actually confidence of working with some very senior people and articulating what good looks like, and then working with them to come to
Yeah.
an agreed solution, which
It's
is fantastic. It's a
it's
great
strange,
job to
isn't it?
do.
Because I think this sort of blended approach is really important, especially. I mean, I'm going to be slightly biased because all the people that we work with are career interim managers. You know, they've done this so many times they can do it with their eyes closed, type of thing. But in this type of role, experience really does matter. You know, what you don't want is a rigid organization that comes as a third party and says, yes, you know, we've got all these toolkits. It might sound great at first, but it means that the whole organization has got to adapt for this one or two people office setup to run the transformation. That just feels like the tail wagging the dog. It should be the
Yeah,
other way round. It's like, what do you have? What do you like to use? What are you comfortable with? What's everyone going to get bought in with? Right, okay, we'll use all this. And then for your gaps, can I recommend this, this, and this? We've got the toolkit already set up if you want it, or maybe your CIO might want to make a suggestion, or maybe your
yeah,
CFO might want to make a suggestion. This sort of blended model is I think it just shows experience. Going back to the original question, which the original question is why a good PMO office is essential for successful transformation. From what I've gleaned so far from you is that why is it essential? Well, without it, you're going to get surprises. It's going to feel like it's a little bit out of control. And you're going to be in this situation where it just doesn't feel right. And you're going to have that feeling until it's not right. And then you can have the problem that you have to deal with. And you knew all along it wasn't right. And everyone hates that feeling. So I think, you know, bringing in a PMO for transformation, I think it is essential. I might be slightly biased. You're definitely going to be slightly biased, but I think the way that you've explained it in a non-biased way and gave a really good understanding for people in terms of what the PMO does. So thank you. Thank you. I think that's been great. If someone's thinking about hiring a PMO or thinking about delivering a transformation, when do they need to bring in the PMO?
That is a good question. I would say if they're at the early stages of transformation, as soon as you understand you need one and you look at the key roles, start thinking about what capabilities do we have in the organisation and what bandwidth do they have.
Yeah.
So it's fine having the people, but the breadth of experience might be something different, and it might be the bandwidth. You've not got enough bandwidth. I would always recommend, if it's complicated, if it's large, you've not done this before, if there's lots of ambiguity, look to appoint your program board as soon as you can, because that PMO leader, somebody like me, will be included in that. And the sooner you can get them in with what essentially was your program director, have them working together. In my experience, doing it that way means that we can form a bond, we can be aligned on things right from the start. I can get a head start on working with maybe they do have a CTO in there, maybe they've got a corporate central office, so I can start working with the central team and pulling down their existing frameworks and working with them to find out, is this fit for purpose for this particular program? Is there any tailoring that's needed? And if there is, let's work through that. Having somebody like me in first to set that up and making sure that everything's in place. When your projects start to deliver, you're up and running, and you've got all of these templates, methodologies, processes, races, roles and responsibilities, all of the fundamental things that prop your program up. They're already there, they're already agreed, and your teams are good to go. That means they can focus on delivery. That means that the program director, the SLT board, we can focus on managing the stakeholders and looking at other aspects, which could be a raft of them. I think it's about what are the priorities. If that can't be done, there are ways around that. We fast track things and prioritize things, but ultimately, the earlier it can be, the better. But make sure you get the right person for that particular program. And it isn't necessarily somebody with industry experience. It could be somebody with a breadth, because they may have a more impartial view, and they might bring other experiences that somebody with just that lens might not be able to. So it's having to think about that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And second question, if there's a client and they do have that feeling that it's not quite going right, or it's not quite in control, or they're getting a couple of surprises, or let's be honest, if you're in a leadership position, you should have a good gut. And if your gut's saying to you that something's not quite right, it probably isn't. So at that stage, can a PMO come in and fix those things and make it feel like it's more in control, even if you're midway through a program?
Absolutely. So this is the other side of what I've been working with many of my clients. And there's a great example about a year ago where the SLT they didn't feel that they were fully engaged with the delivery. They were running, for example, more of an agile program. What they were missing was the wraparound, which is essentially what I did, was wrap around MSP around it as a quick fix. And the reason for that is because it provided some structure. It gave a level of reporting they didn't have. It clarified exactly what needs to go into the comms for your steer course, because there was a lot of technical information which wasn't required at that level. And what we found was there were some gaps, and we were able to fix those gaps with some conversations. Now, I'm not saying those were easy, that they weren't, but where we did find ambiguity, it gave them an opportunity to go and explore that, so that the stakeholder could make a decision. So that's invaluable. Had they not have done that, they wouldn't have known, because they were going on a course which was very much technically driven, whereas what they needed was, what decisions do you want us to make, and high level, what does this mean? They were lost in the details, so they had no real awareness of it. So I would always say, yes, there is never a late time. People like myself who come in to do these roles, we can do deep dives, we can work with your teams, there's lots of things that we can do to find out and then present back and go, and this is what we found, these are some options, let's have a conversation about it. This could be the impact if we do nothing, because doing nothing is an option. It's more important to give the stakeholders the information and then ask them. We can recommend this, but ultimately they're the decision makers, and they can make the decision.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a big thing. You know, everyone often, sometimes, you know, people would think, well, you know, we need this structure at the start, and then we start running the program, and maybe they don't get things quite right, and that's okay, you know, because very experienced people are used to coming into a program midway through with its little difficulties and little problems that they can then come in and try and fix and they can do it relatively quickly and change that whole mindset of the program and change the feeling that the exec and certainly what the board program sponsors feeling in terms of getting that back under control. So I think going back to the question, you know, why is a good PMO essential for successful transformation? I think the answer that I'm bringing is, without it, you can have less control, you can have less governance, and it's going to feel like it's not running right. And it's just not worth going through that when you could fix that with a PMO.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you. Michelle, I think you've added some real insight into PMO. I've even had clients say in the past that PMO is a bit mysterious and they don't quite understand it. So I think what you've done is really shed some light into how a PMO operates and works. I don't think I can now get this picture out of my head that the PMO is the swan and just gliding across with the little legs paddling like crazy. So I think you've embedded that in my mind now forever. But I think a lot of people who are in sponsorship positions, SLT, board positions, and responsible for an element of transformation are going to get some real value out of this. So thank you so much for your time, and it's been great to speak to you again.
You too, Mark. Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
Thanks. Bye.